Welcome to the Cook Group's podcast, What's Cooking in Litigation, with your host, Brian Wacker. In each episode, you'll meet industry leaders, innovators, and educators in litigation. We'll discuss the latest advancements, efficient practices, and strategic updates. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, cookgrouplegal.com. Now here's the host of What's Cooking in Litigation, Brian Wacker.
Hello, and welcome back to What's Cooking in Litigation. I am your host, Brian Wacker. Each week we have been breaking down latest trends in litigation and chatting with some of what we believe are the sharpest minds in the industry, including those within our own firm here at the Cook Group. This week is going to be, I think, our 11th episode, and it's actually a new one for me because it's a new one for everyone because I'm here with our newest partner in the Cook Group out of our Pennsylvania office, Ashley Rodgers. Ashley, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And Ashley, why this is so great for me is, as opposed to all of these other episodes where I'm essentially interviewing people I already know, is this is our first time actually meeting, right?
Yes.
So how long have you been with the Cook Group? A few weeks now?
I started at the beginning of August.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you.
Thanks.
And if I'm getting this right, and this is really just me going off of our website and the emails I've been reading, but you are opening up, or you're part of a separate office in Pennsylvania, not in our Philadelphia office, but in Pittsburgh. Is that right?
Correct. I was asked by Liza, our managing partner in Philadelphia, to open a Pittsburgh office. So I am moving ahead with that.
Are you a native Pittsburghian, or is that, I don't even know what I'd call it that.
Pittsburgher, I think. Yes, I grew up a little bit east of the city in the suburbs, so native of Western Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, I do have a small connection to the Pittsburgh area in that when I was a child, I was a massive Pittsburgh Pirates fan, which is traitorous to the St. Louis Cardinals and everything around here. But I corrected my ways, and I'm back to being a Cardinals fan. But for a good while, I was a big Pittsburgh Pirates fan.
Well, I can't blame you for that. We just went to the last game at the home game yesterday, so we understand that love of Pirates.
Very well. All right. So let's talk a little bit about you, kind of dig into a bit of your background. I'm very curious. How long you've been practicing? Where you've been practicing? What is it you do?
Sure. So I graduated law school in 2012 here in Pittsburgh. And after school, I worked during school. I went to an evening program and worked during the day at a law firm. And then in February of 2013, I was offered a position as an associate with a regional firm that's based out of Philadelphia. They had about 7 offices. And I worked there for a little over 9 years. So I was there for a long time. It was an insurance defense firm. And about half of what I did there was asbestos and toxic tort work. The other half was general liability. Because it was a small office, it was a really great opportunity for me to learn pretty much all areas of civil defense work. I did work in employment law, professional liability, medical malpractice, products liability, the toxic tort work. And so I was there for quite some time. And then shortly after the COVID pandemic, it became clear that, maybe our thoughts weren't the same as to where my career was going with that firm. And I was offered a position as a partner at a large national firm. And that's actually where I met Liza. So Liza worked in the Philadelphia office there. I worked in the Pittsburgh office. And I was hired there to do more general liability work. But because I had so much experience, and one of the things I'd experienced in was asbestos work, I continued to work in the asbestos realm. I helped her and some of the partners in Philadelphia handle their Pittsburgh cases. Our national clients, we had cases in Pittsburgh. For anyone who knows anything about Pittsburgh, asbestos is a very large area of law here because of the sheer volume of, industrial and commercial sites we have here in the Steel City. So I continued to work in there. And then, like I said before, Liza reached out to me earlier this year and said that she was looking to expand in Pittsburgh and wanted to know if I wanted to come on board. So here I am. All
right. Well, we're happy to have you. I mean, you hit on about 9 different things there that I want to ask you about. But one of the things I've always known, I've in my practice for my 17 some years now, the asbestos and the toxic tort and the benzene and all those sort of mass tort litigation is a huge part of the St. Louis and the Southern Illinois and the Chicago sort of jurisdictions, because like you said, they're similar to Pittsburgh. There's a big industrial history here. I've always known, or I've always been told, that Pennsylvania has a similar setup. Now, is it that you talked about the sort of the history, and you've got a lot of industrial work sites there, and it's part and parcel of who folks are up in Pennsylvania? Is the prevalence of toxic tort litigation up there a result of that? Is it a result of certain plaintiff-friendly laws, a combination of both? What can you tell us about Pennsylvania that the folks in the Midwest or elsewhere probably don't know?
I think it's basic. I think historically it was based on just the volume of available plaintiffs, if you want to put it that way. I think a lot of the asbestos plaintiffs firms realized that this was, a big area of law here because there is just so many steel mills, and, being in the Three Rivers and being close to West Virginia and being close to Ohio. I mean, we see cases filed for people who worked in all three of those states. In Allegheny County, I'm also admitted in West Virginia, which I failed to mention earlier. And so, I think that was historically why. But as the years have gone by, the fact that we have been dubbed as one of the most plaintiff-friendly jurisdictions in the country, I think that has fostered it to grow. And I also think that it has attracted other law firms to come in and file cases here in hopes to get good, good results.
Now, in one of the things that we see in the Midwest, and this is something we can all complain about over beers till the cows come home, but a lot of the litigation, or a lot of the cases that get filed in our jurisdictions are actually from folks who have alleged exposures from all over the country, not necessarily folks from the Missouri or the Illinois region. Does that happen up in Pennsylvania as well, or are you mostly looking at local plaintiffs, folks in the region that have localized exposures?
So that's interesting, because surprisingly, we don't see a lot of that in Pittsburgh. We will see Allegheny County. You'll see some that are, over the border in New York, up north, that kind of thing. County by county jurisdictions might be off, and they'll file in Allegheny when it should be Beaver, or it should be, one of those kind of things. Now in Philadelphia, you'll see a lot more. There are a lot of people that will file in Philadelphia when it should be anywhere else. But I don't think generally in Pennsylvania we see that nearly as much as you guys do.
Okay. Now, in sort of playing off that, and this is great, because it sort of like supports a lot of my preconceived notions about some of the jurisdictions as I speak to folks all over the country. But are there localized rules specific to asbestos cases or toxic tort cases in Allegheny County or Philadelphia that kind of attract people to bring cases there because there's economies of scale to bring more cases in a certain area? Or does every case kind of proceed like a normal general litigation case, which can ultimately cost people a lot of money to try these cases?
Yeah, no. So we definitely have an asbestos docket in Allegheny County. Now, the counties that are not Allegheny, not Pittsburgh, we call them outer counties. They don't have a specific docket, so there'll be a little bit more. So you won't see as many cases filed there. But in Allegheny County, and as well as Philadelphia, there's specific dockets. So Pennsylvania has a specific rule for asbestos cases only, that you don't have to file an answer. So defendant does not file an answer. They can just file an appearance that acts as an answer. So there are some things that shortcut it. And it is kind of nice. I think Philadelphia is a little bit more clear cut as far as what's going to happen when a case is filed. Here in Allegheny, we see a little bit of frustration with, there's different judges that handle it and they have different practice and procedure. But as a general matter, there's a very set docket case management order. So depending on when you file it, that's when it'll get set. Now it does get pushed, but once you have a trial date, then you have all the deadlines. It's very routine as far as filing goes. Right. But I don't think it's the rules necessarily that attract plaintiffs' firms. I think it's the rulings that they get from the court.
That's a very nice distinction that I can appreciate being on this side of the V. Are there invariably, you'll go to different jurisdictions, you'll see some sort of rocket dockets or dockets where you get expedited trial settings based on certain types of allegations, certain types of exposures, alleged diseases. Does that occur in Pennsylvania as well, where certain cases get expedited over others?
Yes, it does. And again, people who don't know much about Pennsylvania will not really appreciate this as much, but Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are very different. It's like two different worlds when it comes to litigation. Philadelphia, they do consider it a rocket docket. They're very much more strict with once a case is filed, it's going to get moved. Pittsburgh, if you know anything about Pittsburgh and the Pittsburgh area, we're kind of a laid back, friendly jurisdiction, if you will. So there is an expedited docket process, and they'll file those for cases in, living meso cases where they need to get on the docket right away, that kind of thing. But I would say 6 out of 10 cases, they end up pushing it off. The first trial grant gets pushed on anyway because they haven't had a chance to get depositions in. It's a very congenial kind of, we give a lot of courtesy to the other side in Pittsburgh. So if it wants to be pushed, the judges will push it, but it doesn't happen nearly as much as it does in Philadelphia and other jurisdictions.
Right. And is that, and again, we talk about that as being Midwest nice, right? So in St. I don't know, the total sidetrack, but where do you think the Midwest is? Does Pittsburgh think it's part of the Midwest, or you guys?
No. Pittsburgh does not think it's part of the Midwest, but I know a lot of people who consider Pittsburgh mentality to be a Midwest mentality, if that makes sense. In the way of that. Pittsburgh is a very unique city in a lot of ways, and especially demographically speaking of how the people are with each other. We laugh all the time, we'll go in a court and we'll argue, and then we'll go, have drinks after or go to their kid's birthday, that night. And that's fine. It's not like that everywhere. I understand growing up here and only practicing here. It's kind of different for me to hear that it's not like that everywhere. But yeah, no, I don't think we actually are part of the Midwest, but we do have more of that mentality than we do the Philadelphia one.
Okay. Very well. And actually that kind of goes into the next thing I was going to ask about is that, there's the mentality of the bar, right? Which I think we have a similar setup here in the Midwest, I would say with, I would say we're in your analogy, we're the Pittsburgh, and then you've got, Chicago or Dallas or Houston. They're a little more of the Philadelphia, right? They've got, it gets a little more cutthroat, a little. Is there a market difference in the jury pools, right? That's one of the first things you get when you get a new case and an adjuster or client's asking you about the value of it and what it is we're supposed to be looking for. Can you talk a little bit about what you would describe as sort of the jury pool and what makes Pittsburgh different from Philadelphia, different from anywhere else?
I don't know that the jury pool itself would be extremely different between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia just because of the demographics of the area. The one thing I will say about Pittsburgh is it's a really small city. The actual city itself is very small compared to other cities. And so you do get Allegheny County juries that are actually out in more, the more rural areas, which is unlike a lot of other places. So you might see a little bit more of a blue collar jury. But overall, I mean, as far as that's concerned, I think Pittsburgh's much like other cities where you're going to see a big mix. I mean, Pittsburgh was historically an industrial city, as you know, it was a blue collar city, but in recent years it's become, a big hub for AI, banking, and that kind of thing. So we really do get a decent mix.
Yeah. One of the things that we see here is that, and in St. Louis, what we call the metro area, you kind of have a similar complexion, small metro city with some outstate counties, and sort of the metro area gets into different jurisdictions. But then when you go across the river, I guess behind me, other side of the arch, you'll see, you see Madison County and St. Clair County, and the two of those counties have, they're relative by size, not that large, but they're part of a metropolitan area.
Right.
But what those counties have is pretty deep roots of industry, right? Mm-hmm. And also now 25, 30 years of litigation later, they've got deep roots in this litigation. And so the jury pool kind of knows what's going on, for better or worse. They have that. Right. So it's interesting that you say that about Pittsburgh, because my impression is that makes a lot of sense to me. Whereas Philadelphia scares me in the same way that New York may scare me, right? In a different way. So that's kind of, okay, perfect.
Yeah, right. I would agree with that.
So is there, sort of shifting gears a little bit while we've got a few minutes left, are there any trends? One of the things we see here in the Midwest, I know in New York as well, is there's a lot more talc litigation coming up, right? new asbestos or toxic tort case seems to have an extra count light in there about talc exposure. Is that getting legs up in Pennsylvania? Are you starting to see more of those type of claims?
We are seeing more of those types of claims, and I think that it's in big part because of what I mentioned earlier about other like national firms that are coming in and trying to make a name for themselves. The toxic tort in Pittsburgh specifically was the same firms for years and years and years. And then you see some people branch off from those firms and they may or may not make it. But in recent years, particularly the DNOMAR firm, they've come into Pittsburgh and they've actually partnered with a smaller firm in Pittsburgh. And so they're filing talc cases in Pennsylvania a lot more. And it's interesting because the judges here in Allegheny County didn't really know exactly how to handle that because it's not really the exact same kind of litigation. So it's just really been, I'd say for the past couple of years, it's been more filings in talc, but it's just really been in the past year that the judges have really set up a specific plan for handling it. So in other words, we have asbestos judges who handle only asbestos cases. If it's only a talc case, it's not handled on the asbestos docket. It's handled by what Pittsburgh calls the Complex Litigation Commerce Center. And that's the complex docket is set up, which I'm sure other jurisdictions have something similar, for cases that have multiple parties, complex issues, and they're handled by the same judge throughout rather than having different judges handle it as we do in Allegheny County. So those cases are handled by our complex judge, which is a totally different judge from asbestos. And so they're handled a little bit differently. So yeah, it's taken us a little bit of time to kind of catch up with that. So I wouldn't say we have a lot of talc cases right now, but I think it's on the rise.
Right. It would seem to me that in similar to New York or what we're seeing, I think I saw something from Massachusetts recently that there are a lot of firms coming in with these new, call them novel, call them whatever you want, but they're dangerous talc cases. They're coming into different jurisdictions trying to sort of set a bellwether trial, right? Yeah. Get one out there that really rings the bell, that scares everybody else off. Have we had any of those yet in Pennsylvania or near you that have kind of set the standard?
Yeah, you know what?
Not to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay. There was one talc case that I wasn't involved in. I think I want to say about 2 years ago, and I honestly can't remember what happened with it. It wasn't anything like the $1 billion Johnson & Johnson, kind of thing that we've seen in other jurisdictions. That I can tell you. It wasn't anything that's going to set any records by any means.
Are there any, and sort of wrapping up the discussion of Pennsylvania, and we'll wrap up everything in a few minutes, but are there any caps or anything in Pennsylvania that, I mean, it all sounds like, tough news for folks working in Pennsylvania. Any good news to report for folks on the wrong side of the V in Pennsylvania?
No, unfortunately, no. I mean, there really aren't any caps. I will say, we see higher settlements in Philadelphia because there's less shares. So Philadelphia is seeing higher. In Pittsburgh, we still try to keep, our historical settlement amounts lower. They're going up as everything is over time. And it's obviously a plaintiff-friendly jurisdiction. So that's going to continue to happen unless more trials are had. But, the one thing I will say is that with Pittsburgh judges being so interested in historical numbers, it is kind of nice to be able to tell your clients what to expect. It's kind of like from a business standpoint, it's like, okay, well, yeah, they have to pay on this case, but it'll only be the same thing we paid in, all these other cases. So other than that, no, unfortunately, it's not. I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's also definitely not being better for defendants here in Pittsburgh or in Philadelphia for sure.
Clients love predictability, but at the same time, it's predictably bad.
Predictably bad. Sometimes you got to draw a line. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, we got a couple minutes left. I just wanted to ask you, you've as you mentioned at the beginning, you've been sort of tasked with opening up an office there in Pittsburgh. What do you see as the sort of short and medium term outlook in Pittsburgh and for the Cook Group? I know we're excited to be part of it, and I know we're excited to continue to grow. What do you see in the short and medium term for getting our feet on the ground there?
Yeah, sure. So I, like I said, I'm deep rooted in the asbestos litigation here in Pittsburgh. So I'm really excited to bring the Cook Group here and expand their footprint a little bit. As you can see, I'm not in an office. I'm still working from home. I'm actually in the process of looking for an office here. So, I mean, short term, it's been mostly working with the Philadelphia office to make sure that they have everything covered. And we have some great new associates that we're working with, and we're looking forward to helping them grow. Once we get a little bit more settled, get an office space and get a footing, then our goal will be to expand our client base here in Pittsburgh and expand the office at the same time. So, within the next couple of years, I'm hoping for some exciting things to come out, and I'll be happy to come back on and share them with you.
Excellent. We're excited for it. Legitimately, every time we open a new office, and you can look at that map on our website that another state turns blue with the little marker on it. It's exciting stuff. So we're thrilled to have you aboard. Thrilled for all the success I'm sure is coming ahead. I'm thrilled I'm going to see you this weekend at our Midwest. You're going to be part of the Midwest.
That is true. So there is that Midwest connection.
All right. So we're going to put you down as the eastern boundary of the Midwest, at least for purposes of the Cook Group. So. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Perfect. All right. Well, that's going to do it for what is going to be our second to last episode of the season for What's Cooking in Litigation. Thanks again for everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Ashley, for joining us.
Thank you.
If you have found today's discussion helpful at all, again, please go on your favorite streaming service, like the podcast, leave us a review, do anything to help us get our word out there, get our names out there. We really appreciate it. And until next time, take care and stay informed.
You've been tuning in to the Cook Group's podcast, What's Cooking in Litigation, with your host, Brian Wacker. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, cookgrouplegal.com. Thank you for sharing this show with others.